This week's parsha is the most important parsha in the entire Torah. You may ask, why is this week's parsha the most important in the entire Torah? Well, let me tell you. Parsha Korach is about rebellions, not just one, but three separate rebellions. We have the rebellion of Korach, the rebellion of Datan, Aviram, and On. Everyone forgets about On, probably because he sort of disappears from the parsha after the opening line. And the rebellion of the people, upset at how Moshe handled the previous two rebellions. We have the earth-swallowing people, a plague, fire pans, and staffs of sprouting almonds. But none of that is why this is the most important parsha in the Torah. The reason this is the most important parsha is because it teaches us about the very Jewish concept of machloket. Machloket, disagreements, disputes. Is there anything more Jewish? Go into any yeshiva or Beit Midrash and you'll see people arguing with each other, sometimes aggressively, over the correct way to understand a verse of Torah, Gemara, or Mishnah. We've all heard the phrase, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Well, we come by it honestly. Pirkei Avot distinguishes between two kinds of machloket. We read in chapter 5, verse 17. Which is the machloket that is for the sake of heaven? Such was the machloket of Hillel and Shammai. And which machloket is not for the sake of heaven? Such was the machloket of Korach and his congregation. There are good uses of machloket, like Hillel and Shammai, using it to get to the true understanding of Torah. And there are bad uses of machloket, like Korach challenging the leadership of Moshe and Aaron in this week's parsha. But not only is Korach the example of a bad use of machloket, it seems like such an unusual machloket. How could anyone challenge Moshe as leader? They were all at the splitting of the sea. They were all at Sinai. They all heard and saw the signs from Hashem, clearly affirming Moshe as Hashem's chosen leader. Okay, maybe they viewed Moshe's ruling with a heavy hand. Moshe had dealt quite severely with previous transgressions of the people, including the incident with the spies immediately before this week's parsha. But even if they had a reason to be upset with Moshe, what gave them the courage to challenge Moshe at this point? Well, there's a midrash that fills in a few gaps. The Talmud, Yoma 75a, explains that the way the daily manna worked was that for the most righteous individuals, their portion of manna fell right at the entrance of their tent. They opened the front door, and there it was. The Bein Oni, the middle-of-the-road individual, their manna fell a little bit further away, but not too far, maybe at the end of their driveway. The wicked ones, theirs fell in the field, and they had to go and work for it. The more righteous, the closer to their tent, the more wicked, the further. Moshe, of course, had his manna fall right at the entrance of his tent. The Midrash teaches that on the morning of the Korach rebellion, there was no manna at the entrance to Moshe's tent. Korach and his followers saw that and deduced that Moshe didn't have the same level of righteousness that he had previously. So they decided today was the day. Of course, what they didn't notice was that there wasn't any manna at anyone's tent, or driveway, or field. No manna fell at all that day. What's going on here? I think the Midrash is telling us something fundamental about the nature of the Korach rebellion, something fundamental to the nature of machloket. The morning of the sin of the golden calf, what did the people eat? Manna. The morning of the sin of the spies, what did the people eat? Manna. But the morning of the Korach rebellion, no manna fell. The sin of the golden calf and the spies were sins against Hashem. Terrible sins, but the people were still united. Sure, they were united against Hashem, but unity nonetheless. But the Korach rebellion was about disunity, the Jewish people fighting amongst themselves. That, at least according to this midrash, is an even greater sin than the golden calf or spies. And during the sin of disunity, no manna can fall. Machloket is an inherently powerful tool. When used properly, like Hillel and Shammai, can unlock deep spiritual ideas. But when misused, like Korach, can tear us apart. It's a tool to be used carefully, and one that the Jewish world today uses far too often. But what about the one who caused machloket? Where do they stand? Korach and his followers were swallowed up by the earth. But does that mean they are forever cut off? There's a custom that when you make Havdalah at the end of Shabbos, you fill the cup of wine to overflowing. This is not some New Age neo-Hasidic custom. This is right out of the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. Many symbolic reasons have been offered for this custom, often revolving around the idea of wanting your life to be overflowing with good. Love the idea, but what does it have to do with machloket? Keep with me. The custom, in fact, is not to fill the cup so it overflows. It's supposed to overflow onto the ground. Fair warning, don't do this unless you're the one who will be responsible for cleaning up that mess. Why overflow on the ground? So that Korach and his followers, who were swallowed up by the ground in this week's parsha, can partake of the Havdalah wine. Despite everything Korach did, despite the harm caused by his machloket, we still celebrate Havdalah with them. No matter what the machloket, we're all one people, we're all one family, and we all still stand together, side by side, in the service of Hashem. Think about that next time you're in a machloket, a dispute, a disagreement with someone. That is one reason why this is the most important parsha in the entire Torah. But the other reason is that the most important piece of Torah is whatever piece of Torah you have in front of you right now. Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.